the week ahead. It's probably going to be a very interesting and probably volatile week. We start off with Jolt's report on Tuesday, which has been adding volatility to the market. We've got a potential government shutdown on Wednesday. We've got ADP on Wednesday, and then of course we've got an employment report at the end of the week. So it's probably going to be a very interesting week. You're probably going to need to be very flexible and keep an open mind and put your biases aside. The first thing I would like to point out is that we did have a different atmosphere last week. Now, the market didn't do any serious damage, but it was different than what we had been experienced. So change can happen that way. It can sneak up on you. The next thing that I want to put in your mind, if the market should start to sell off, I'm not predicting that, but I'm saying if it should start to sell off, the first thing it will focus on would be the 6,700 level. Friday looked like mostly short covering, and the market, closed the day out right around 6,700. Early last week, as the market was different last week, there didn't appear to be any serious institutional selling. It appeared to be mostly short-term traders. However, if the market does start to give any serious setback, normally, if institutional money comes into the sell side of the market, it usually doesn't occur until the market's off 7 to 9%. So you can really get misled because the market can go down. It doesn't look like it's too serious. And all of a sudden, you get a total change to the downside. Again, I'm not predicting that, but I'm simply alerting you to the fact if there is change, that the institutional selling usually comes in after the market has given back 7 to 9%. And the reasoning for that is institutional money is buy, hold. They don't trade the markets like we do. However, if things start to get a little bit heavy on the market, they get telephone calls from their clients, just as we do if we're running with individual money. And that starts the institutional investors getting a little bit nervous. So just be aware of that. Not a prediction, but it's something to be aware of because it can catch you off guard in the market. When we look at the monthly bar, it shows that the market's still one time framing higher. Let's take a quick look at the weekly bar. You will see the weekly bar, the last 2 weeks, pretty close together, and they're sitting right above a gap. That is your most important downside reference. If there's to be anything serious on the downside, you will see price finding acceptance and range extension below that 2-week balance, along with filling the gap. And of course, as I said earlier, the 6,700 level is our reference as we go into next week. I also just remind you that Friday looked to be mostly short covering. Short covering can be very misleading, but short covering can actually weaken the market as it removes potential buying power. Okay, let's take a look at the daily bar. So you can see the daily bar. It looks like you've got an excess low down there from Thursday, and then you've got a market that rallied pretty sharply. But remember, that low is fairly close to the 2-week low. So if there's anything serious next week, you will take out last week's low, and you will take out Thursday's low. That would be followed by taking out the prior weekly low, filling the gap, etc. Okay, let's take a look at the profiles. Okay, when we look at the profiles, as I've mentioned a couple of times, The late rally on Friday was right to the 6,700 level. That 6,700 level is also, roughly centered within the last several days of trading. Any serious retracement will see the market start to trade fairly aggressively down below the 6,700 level. The most important thing is leave your biases aside. There's a lot of news next week and an awful lot of potential for volatility. I have no upward or downward bias coming into next week. If I had any bias at all, it is that Friday was mostly short covering, and I wouldn't be surprised to see the market test a little bit lower Sunday night and early in the week. Then the question is, what follows that? Have a great week. Keep your biases aside.